Another entire bay filled with paper and nest. Welcome to the Green Wasp Removal YouTube channel. In this special 1-hour episode, we were called to a private residence where an elderly gentleman lived alone and was battling thousands of invasive German Yellowjackets that had built multiple large nests inside the roof eaves, soffit bays, and also behind the brick facade wall. Dozens of wasps per day had been entering the living room of the home, which was directly behind the nesting wall, and the owner had been stung several times already. He'd even found wasps crawling on his face at night as he was trying to sleep on the couch because the air conditioning was cooler there during the intense heat of August. And he had already spent days on his own trying desperately to vacuum up the wasps several times per day with a small handheld vacuum. Unfortunately, he was also spraying a huge can of toxic insecticide all over the inside windows where the lost wasps would congregate until the whole house smelled like toxic chemicals. But he didn't know what else to do. If this ever happens to you, simply remove your window screen and open the window as wide as possible during the daytime, and all the wasps will fly out immediately towards the daylight. They don't want to be stuck in your dark house. Then vacuum up all the wasps from the outside where they are entering the building, and repeat this daily until there is no more flying wasp traffic and the nest starves out due to lack of foragers bringing in food for the larvae to develop. Never use toxic pesticide to control wasps because it's often ineffective, it isn't necessary, and it's extremely unhealthy for all living things, including people. If you need help with this, just call a professional who's willing to do a green removal with no pesticides. The man eventually gave us a call because he was finally overwhelmed and exhausted, and it was a losing battle anyway. The wasps just kept coming in no matter how many he killed off inside the house. It turned out that because he was using the living room as a sleeping area at night and he kept the lights on very late, the wasps would come in through the walls after dark because they were attracted to the bright lights and TV, which looked like daylight to them. This is a natural behavior. They're always going to go toward the light. We think they were getting in through wall vents and light fixtures and that kind of thing. This ended up requiring several days of work and became an extensive cutout job. When we arrived, we found thousands of forager wasps coming and going from several exterior entry points around the eaves, and for the first 2 days, we did only attrition collection from the outside of the building just to get the population down so they would stop entering the home. On the third day, we began the exploratory demolition and removal process, which required extensive cutting of the outside soffit and fascia boards. We ended up removing several pounds of nest material from the bays in this soffit, and every time we cleared one bay, we'd find another huge nest in the next bay, and it went like that all the way across this wall. Some nests were extremely active, some were defunct from previous years. Everywhere we looked, we'd find more, especially down in small, tight crevices where we couldn't even get any tools. So we had to vacuum them out as we were doing the removal, thousands at a time. Eventually, we'd get every bay cleared, but it was going to take multiple days of work, and we knew that the gentleman inside was not in any condition to continue being stung every time he tried to use his living room. So it was pretty imperative that we got this handled as fast as we possibly could, and the population reduction we did in the beginning helped a great deal in that regard. And then as we went through the rest of the removal process, you see here wasps were just crawling out of the walls and crawling out of the soffit spaces, and we just had to keep vacuuming and working on it until we could get them all. Finally, the ones we couldn't reach down in the tiny crevices behind the wall, we went ahead and used a non-toxic essential oil mix like you see here. That kills these wasps. They're all hit with the oil here, and they're fleeing now, coming out of these crevices to get out. Wasps breathe through pores in their abdomen, and the oil clogs it up and they suffocate. There was bags and buckets of nests being pulled out of this space. It was a huge population. Eventually, we finally found the primary queen, as you see here. She's much larger than the other workers. A lot of the wasps we could save for venom immunotherapy purposes, but some of the wasps we couldn't save because they were exposed to oils or whatnot. These wasps didn't go to waste because we can dehydrate them in an oven, and this allows us to use them in training and teaching environments as dried specimens. You just never know when you get into these jobs how extensive they're going to end up being, and this one ended up being a massive removal. It's imperative when you do this sort of work that you warn the client in advance before you even get to the property that if a extensive amount of demolition needs to be done, they need to be prepared with a contractor lined up to take care of repairs once all the wasps and all the nest debris have been pulled out. Fortunately for this owner, he had agreed to that in advance and was ready for this sort of thing to happen. As you see here, every bay we opened had some type of wasp activity that was either defunct or active. Here you see paper wasp nests and mud wasp nests all throughout this part of the building. We even found some brand new nests being built, and these were all removed. Finally, at the end of the job, as you see here, none of the wasps that were out foraging and coming back could enter these spaces anymore. And that is because we had sprayed essential oil up into all of these cavities. We also treated all the nooks and crannies and crevices down behind the wall. And so anywhere the wasp might have tried to come back to roost, they were denied access. Eventually, as you see here, we got a scope cam out a few days later and looked into the very small crevices that we couldn't get tools into, but we could treat with oil. Any of the remaining wasps that were hiding in there were dead. The larvae, the eggs, the pupae, whatever we couldn't reach was killed by the non-toxic essential oil mix, and as you see here, nothing was moving anymore. That's it for the preview. Stay tuned to see the entire 1 hour special episode, and we'll show you this entire process from beginning to end. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment, and enjoy the show. August 26, 2024. We have a colony that's moved into the space between the fascia board here and the stone of this private residence. And there's many dozens of every day now being collected by the homeowner inside the home. They're vacuuming, trying to keep up with it. Very active colony. I did indeed. They're kind of hard to miss. So it looks to me like they've already chewed away some of that wood for a landing board. So we'll take a look and see what's happening on the inside. What I'm seeing here, based on the pattern on the back of their turga, which is part of their abdomen, is Vespula germanica. It's a German Yellowjacket, invasive here in the States, comes from overseas, Eurasia. So they are invaders and they love to live inside structures.
Well, that's what they're doing. A lot.
So we're doing an attrition collection from the outside right now. We've got hundreds in the collection bottle already. And we'll continue with this for the next hour or two. Collect as many foragers as we can while they're very active.
So for the next 7 minutes or so of this episode, we're going to show you just a montage of wasps being collected. You'll see it in slow motion, you'll see it in regular speed, and this just illustrates how a non-toxic vacuum extraction is done. All this footage was from the first day of attrition collection from the outside of the building, and the next 2 days after that, you'll see us doing the cutout and removal, which was a very complex multi-nest removal from some very difficult places. So we hope you enjoyed the footage of the collection happening. If you want to move forward to where the cutouts occur, feel free. Enjoy it either way. All of the wasps we collect alive and healthy that have not been exposed to any kind of toxins, we use them all for venom immunotherapy. They go to an excellent cause to save human lives and give people allergy shots until they are immune from their wasp venom allergy. It's a fantastic program, and we're very proud to take part in that. If you want to learn more about venom allergies and how they are treated and cured through venom immunotherapy, take a look at the links in the description. because that will take you directly to some websites with some great videos and information about this. So as you can see here, as the wasps come in, many of them are still bringing back a lot of food. It's protein that they have hunted in the wild in the form of pest insects that they tend to chew up and then feed to their larvae. We'll freeze a frame here for a second so you can see this. They chew that meat from insects into a meatball and they fly it back to the nest and they feed it to the larva. The larvae exist on protein exclusively almost from these adult wasps that go out and hunt for them, forage for food, bring it back and feed the larva. So they need a lot of protein to get through the whole developmental process and into pupation.
August 27th. This is the following day. Very active still, so we're collecting another attrition collection here. Capture another several hundred of them here in the next hour at least. August 28th, 2024. We're back here again to explore the soffit space this time and possibly remove the fascia board just to see if we can figure out where this nest is. It's still quite active. I'm getting quite a few collected already just in a few minutes again. So we're going to work on that today. So what we find inside here is there's a top board. This is solid, so there's no space up here for them to be in that we can access from here. So we might have to drill a hole through there and put the scope cam down there, take a look inside that board. But for now, the soffit space itself, there's no nest here. So underneath this metal fascia is another wood board. So we're going to have to cut through that to get to this nest, evidently. Another very busy collection today. So we ended up taking a piece of the tin or aluminum down from underneath the windowsill, and there's a piece of wood here. So we drilled through there, put the scope cam in, and ran directly into wasps. So we think the nest is probably right here. So we're gonna go in from below, because it's a little less invasive and more hidden from the street view than beating up the fascia board. So we're going to cut through here with an oscillating tool and explore, see what we can find. There's our nest. So we located the nest, as you can see here. Now it's just a matter of vacuuming up and then pulling out as much as we can without damaging too much of the soffit wood. So we dug out a whole bunch of this nest. Got a bucket load of germanica nest in here. And then there's plenty more still up here. Searching for the queen at this point.
Here at the top of the frame, we're going to freeze it just for a minute here. At the top of the frame, you see a pupating wasp. That's the white larval-looking wasp being eaten by 2 worker wasps or 3 worker wasps. They are eating it because it has been dislodged from its cell. And once that happens, it cannot be put back in. So wasps, when they run into this situation where something damages their nest and larvae are damaged or pupae or cells are damaged, they eat all of what's in there, the larvae, the eggs, or the pupae, and they use that for protein for the rest of the nest, so it doesn't go to waste. It looks pretty brutal, cannibalizing your own young, but the fact is they can then turn around and feed that protein to the larva that survives. That's the reason for that behavior.
Come on, Queenie. Where are you at? Alright, so we got all the nest out of there. black that you see there is just old paint. All right, so the active nest was in this bay, and then in this bay, another entire bay filled with paper and nest. So let's see if this one is actually active or not. So there's another whole nest up here. So we're going to pull that down next. They were building queen comb into this section. Trying to watch where they're coming in. It appears they're going in the other side, the other bay, which means there may be more nests back there. But that's not accessible. These cracks that they're going in and out of here at the lower part of the frame, that's probably where they're entering the home through the walls down there, adjacent to the windows. But as you see them crawling back up in here, going up into the next bay, which is over here. And it's not accessible because of the brick. I'm observing where they enter. I'm observing where they enter because they're coming in here still. And I'm just watching where they come in because I'm curious if there's another bay full of nests. I pulled another whole section of nest out of the second bay here. That's in the bucket now. They were starting to build some queen cells in there, which is the next year's.
Like it was very active.
It was not. That was probably a previous year, and they just borrowed one corner of it to build their newer section of queen comb. Because there was a whole bunch of wasps clustered on it when I pulled it out, that one piece of comb. So they had gone through the side door over here into that next bay. And I think there may be another one of those on the other side, but it's not so accessible with the brick. So what I'm going to do is spray with the essential oils to deny them comfort in these bays. And then we'll see if that causes a flood in the house. If it does, you may have more nest over here.
Where they're going in, so I don't, yeah.
They are going in there.
One just went in, did you see it?
Yeah, I've been watching them enter there. And there's more starting to cluster right here. So I think they're going straight back along the edge, this edge of this one. There's another one of these right here.
Yeah.
They're going along that edge and crawling this way into this doorway down here. And I think that's probably good news because more of them and more of them are clustering here, right here. As they come in here, they're going back and this way. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. So we just sprayed in there with essential oil, and as you can see, they're all bailing out and dying. And that's what we want. We want them out of there. Dropping. It's like the oil knocked them out. Now it looks like they're just about done. Only things moving in there are dying from oil exposure and soap and water, suffocating. So as you see here, the last few foragers returning, they cannot go in. They try to walk into where they used to go in, and they immediately come back out because they cannot deal with the oil. We've got it pretty well saturated in there with oil, so as soon as they get in there, it gets all over their abdomens, and that clogs the spiracles that they breathe through, and that kills them. So this should slow the traffic down here quite a bit. So they can only stay in there very briefly, and then they have to come back out. So there's a few stragglers trying to get in, but they can't get in because of the oil. And The bays are now treated with oil and empty of nest. Here's the collection from today. They expired in the heat. We didn't have time to go back and freeze them while we were dealing with such a large nest removal. Had to do a cutout on this one. But here you can see the queen. You see how large she is compared to the others. So this nest won't rebuild without their queen, and that's good news for the homeowner. So we're going to dehydrate these and use them as display specimens inside a jar. They're useful for that. So we're going to bake it here at about 175, and we'll keep them in here, let's say, for an hour on bake. And they just sit in there on a rack and dehydrate.
It's a big nest, several pounds of nest in this bag.
September 3rd. The dead nest in the next bay over, which is evidence that for many, many decades they've been living in this whole upper wall. And as you can see, multi-level nests coming out of there, but these are defunct right now. So the live ones are up here and over there, behind the brick. So we're gonna have to remove these fascia boards in order to see what's going on in there. But they're very active, going in right here, as you can see.
So up here we've got a lot of paper wasp and mud wasp activity, but in these top two bays there's no germanica, no yellowjacket activity. These are all hatched out paper wasp nests and some mud wasp nests. All this is historical stuff, nothing new. Mud wasps and paper wasps. Now down here, this hole, this is where the germanica and the yellowjackets are going to be living, in this hole. Same on this side. There'll be a lot of activity inside behind the wall. So basically they're not accessible from out here. It's also possible that they're up here in the top. So we'll check the soffit, but they could also be up in the attic space, up on the roof area. So they've got a few different places they could live. This bay is clear. We're going to freeze the frame here for you for just a minute to talk about some of the gear we use in cutouts. The first tool that we recommend in any type of cutout is called an oscillating tool or an oscillating multi-tool. That's what you see here. It has multiple blades. They'll cut through metal, wood, plaster and lath, whatever you have, based on whatever blade you choose to use. It's a fantastic tool and works in some of the tightest conditions in the most awkward spaces, and just a fantastic battery-powered operation. You can't go wrong with an oscillating tool, whether you're cutting away drywall or ceilings or wood or metal, whatever it is, nails even. Next thing we're going to talk about is PPE. You must have some type of respirator to cover your airway. The reason for this is everything we take out of a cutout, all the dust that it's causing is damaging to your lungs. It's straight up toxic. So that's lead, mold, wood dust, stone dust, plaster dust, sheetrock debris, fiberglass insulation, foam insulation, you name it. Any number of other chemical compounds and things that are just toxic. So just do your body a favor and don't suck up a bunch of carcinogens while you're working. It will come back to haunt you later in life. Next thing that's absolutely crucial is eye protection. When you're doing cutouts and you have stinging insects involved especially, you're protecting your eyes from venom, from dust, from debris, from any number of things that can fly off of that saw and take your eyeball out. For real. You have to make sure this stuff doesn't blind you. Next one is hearing protection. That is equally important when you're dealing with a lot of power tools, a lot of noise, a lot of vacuum devices that can be super loud over the long term. If you don't want to end up with tinnitus, which is hardcore ringing in your ears for the rest of your life, you better protect your ears when you're doing this kind of work. The next one seems really obvious, but you'd be amazed how many people do not do this. When they begin cutouts, they attempt to do it without a suit, and then they get all stung up. And if they're on a ladder, they might jerk themselves right off the ladder in panic and end up seriously injured. Use your bee suit. Use it every time, all the time. That's full veil, gloves, and suit, and preferably tall boots that are rated for puncture-proof soles and that sort of thing. Nails are all over the place in this kind of work. You can buy inserts that are metal inserts that go into any regular shoe you might want to wear. Fits into pretty much anything, and it will protect you from nails. So just suit up and be careful. You do not want to find out the hard way what your toxicity level is for venom exposure. Envenomation hits everybody differently, and it could hit you differently year to year. So don't end up in anaphylactic shock. We found some hanging out in the corner. So what you see here is nest comb that had been built into a tiny crevice that was about the width of a Yellowjacket, as you see here. You couldn't get fingers into it or a hand into it. You couldn't get most larger tools into that to remove the comb. So what we ended up doing was simply knocking it down with a sharp tool, letting it drop into the crevice hole, and then covering the whole thing with a non-toxic essential oil spray. And that ultimately killed any life stages on that nest, from egg to larvae to pupae to adult. But it was pretty amazing to see how much of every conceivable part of this space they would use. What they end up doing is just building comb in any space and filling it to that space. So if it's 1 inch by 5 inches, fine, they'll build it. If it's 1 foot by 2 foot, they'll fill it. So there is no set shape or pattern for a typical germanica nest inside a building. It can be any shape and any size based on the cavity they decided to build in. Here you see a sharp crevice tool. In this case, it's a pry bar, and we use that to sever all the connections of this nest from the wood. And that way we can drop it down into the cavity that remains and hit that with essential oil. And that's what we're doing here. We're just cutting all those connections so that whatever it can do to drop down, we can at least get it dropped. Because the more you disturb a nest physically, the less likely it is to survive and be maintained by the wasps that survive, if any do. It was very difficult to get any kind of rigid tool in there, so all we could do is bash it around, smush it down, try to crush it, and make sure it was very seriously physically disturbed. And we were working mostly blind, using just the cell phone footage that you see here as our guide, because we couldn't get direct eyes on a lot of these spaces that we were working with. So here you see the nest after we beat it up a little bit and crushed it up. And what happens is when you start to do this to a nest, the wasps themselves will begin to pull out and kill the larvae because they've fallen out of their cells or the cells have been too damaged to repair. And that also works for your benefit. They will remove their own larva from a nest that is not thriving. And that could be because you crushed it up, or it could be because you collected so many of the foraging wasps that were bringing back food that the nest is starving out. Either way, when it comes to the point where they are not thriving, they begin to cannibalize or simply remove their own baby wasps, essentially. So between all that and essential oil application, there was no way this nest was going to survive no matter what combs they had left down there. So when we lift up the corner fascia board, we have the same similar situation here. Here's some starter nests. These were alive. So on this side, this is part of the original nest. And over here is some old paper wasp nests that are defunct, and an old mud wasp nest. So you see them building here maybe, but no comb. It's like a queenless colony. On a mud nest, built on a mud nest base. So they've papered up all of this wood, covered it in paper. But I don't see any more live comb. Now, if we watch this one, it may show us where it goes, probably right down here. This tunnel leads up above and then down into the other bay. And then they've got a lower entrance as well. So we've destroyed the last remaining comb that we could find in here. And now we're applying an essential oil mix with water and soap to all the cracks. So everything in here will be saturated with the oil. And this will deter them from coming back. So we treated with essential oil, soap and water all along the bays in the front. And as you can see, most of the wasps now, who are left over, they cannot land because they cannot tolerate the oil. So as they go along there, if they try to enter, they get covered in oil and they die. So right now they're queenless and homeless, and they're in a little bit of a chaotic state, and that'll last for a few days and then they'll die off. So we're sending the scope cam into these bays, going back behind the walls. As you can see, we can drop it down in behind these cracks. And that's where we're exploring now. This bay, there doesn't seem to be much activity. Same with this bay. But over here, when we look in with the scope cam, there's an old comb, mostly dead and decomposing. So it's a good sign. You can see dead larvae here. There's dead larvae here in their cells. More dead larvae in cells. Some dead Yellowjackets. Some more dead larvae in the cells. Certainly not much moving. So here you see dead wasps. So as you view this footage, understand very clearly that if anybody ever tells you you have to have toxic poisons pumped into your house in order to kill wasps, they are absolutely 100% ignorant, or they're just simply lying to you for profit. More dead wasps. Because it's simply easier and makes them more money to dump a bunch of poison into your house for a few minutes and then take off and do it again to somebody else and repeat that all day long. A simple vacuum technique and non-toxic methods and treatments is all you will ever need for any type of wasp. That is simply the truth. So when you call any pest control company, insist on a green removal. Don't volunteer to let them poison you. Next bay. Furthest left. Moving to the right. So that's it for our 1 hour special. Thanks for riding along with us. As always, we appreciate the support we receive on YouTube from our viewers. It's been a great 3-year run so far, and we look forward to starting our 4th year with you. If you do find this entertaining or educational in any way, please do like, share, subscribe, and comment to let us know you're there. Have a good one.